Hello, this is Elder High Priestess Tehila from the Covenant of the Open Mind, and you're watching Wicca 101 Abridged. Hail and welcome. If you haven't seen our last video on spells, we recommend you head over to episode 12 first before checking out this one. Last video we described what spells are and how they work, and this time we're going to go into more details about how to craft them. As you remember, you need three things to do a spell: intent, desire, and commitment. The hardest part is the intent, as it requires a lot of thought and attention. You may have to gather some supplies, you may have to make do with what you have in order to get the working done, but no matter what type of gatherer you are, collecting items is easy and fun. To get started, here's what you should do. So first, ground and center yourself, then envision the goal you wish to achieve. Be wary of any ethical issues related to your goal. If you don't want to hurt somebody inadvertently, then that's something you should pay a lot of attention to in your wording, or contrarily, if you want to hurt everybody as much as possible, then there you go. Ethics. But ethics and morality are different. But in any case, just be wary, because you want to make sure that your goal is very specifically and well defined. So next you want to clearly define the goal by writing some words of power. And this is the focal point and what makes sure that you don't deviate into some other slightly different version of the same goal by accident. So these can be something poetic. They should definitely be poetic, they should definitely be dramatic, and they should definitely be emphatic. Those three things. When you read them, it should sound like it flows naturally, and it should be easy to remember, because you're going to chant it over and over again until it builds and builds and helps you reach an altered state of mind. So an example of some words of power would be: salt of sea, wind, moon, and sun, bring peace to me, O mighty ones. And this is an example that has kind of a spell and a prayer combo, so it's very Wiccan-esque. It's like you're demanding from the gods that you should get peace because, you're a good little Wiccan and you have a good little relationship with your gods, and so you're going to say a blessing like that and they'll respond in kind. One that has no reliance on deity, if you're interested in that, might read something like, avoid ye harm where oft ye go, but leave my life, I will it so. So this one specifies that you don't want to harm to befall another person, you don't want to harm them at all, but you do want them out of your life. So that's a very basic form and tame form of banishing. For more examples on ritual and spell phrasing, head on over to the earlier episode I do on that subject in the same series. So once you have your words of power, you need to gather the supplies you need for the spell, and these can be as cheap or as expensive as you want them to be. If you think that spending a lot of money on something helps to make that thing more meaningful, then by all means. If you're poor like I am and you don't want to do that, then don't. You definitely don't need to. Find things that are associated with the theme of your spell or a deity who rules your magical working and gather them. It can be, okay, so for instance, say that you're doing that former spell above and you want to work with Neptune or a god of the ocean because it's salt, wind, and sea, So maybe you'll collect seashells for the working, and maybe you'll mix some sand together with small flaked crystals, which can cost you like $2 at a metaphysical store for a whole bottle of them. And you can mix that and sand together, and you can put it in a bottle and put some seashells in it and then seal it with some blue wax or something, and that's your peace bottle. That could be a spell, and that might cost you what, like $5? You could, and that's commonly called a witch's bottle. So a witch's bottle can be used for anything from curses to banishing to protections to baby blessings. Witch's bottles work by storing the energy of a particular working in the bottle and then helping you evoke that energy later on when you need it. So poppets are actually, they do a similar thing, except that they take energy from some person or thing to which they are bound, whereas a witch's bottle usually just has effect on anyone in the vicinity. Poppets are dolls, by the way, or they don't have to be dolls. Like, I just watched the Blair Witch 2, whatever that movie's called, and they had these like weird looking sticks that were all tied together, and one of them had the girl's hair in it, and it snapped, and it was like super frightening. I won't spoil it what happened, but they were essentially poppets as well. Even though they're not dolls, it's still a poppet. Poppets are commonly found in voodoo and curses of all varieties, but most Wiccans don't engage in such things. So a Wiccan might use a poppet for some form of banishing, or to feel like their loved one is with them, or that sort of thing. They could like enchant a bear to feel like their daughter when they go on vacation or something, so that they feel comforted. A Wiccan might bind a spirit, the spirit of a relative, to a candle or a poppet, and either, you know, hug the candle or sorry, hug the poppet, or you know, burn the candle or something as a way of protecting and feeling closer to them. They may have a doll or some item that possesses the spirit of a late relative, something which helps them feel like their relative's still around. It's a lot more powerful if the item belonged to the deceased relative. A lot of times it could be things like cologne or cards or pictures, or, you know, things like that. Witches' bottles and poppets are technically a form of binding, which involves using energy that is not your own, or sending energy into a physical thing as opposed to out into the cosmos. So it's a little different than traditional spell work. And binding is actually a fairly complex form of magic, so it would really take a video all of its own. But as far as supplies for other types of spells, more conventionally used in spell work, candles of all varieties, candles of a certain color or type to represent the energy being generated. So you would use black for banishing, orange for vitality, purple for kingship or, you know, confidence, and pink for love, and blue for healing, and yeah, and you can either use the colors as they're classically associated, or you can use them because they're associated with a certain chakra, or you could just be like, you know what, orange reminds me of sunshine, and I'm sad, so I'm gonna do a sunshine spell, or something, you know, whatever. Maybe yellow reminds you of sunshine more than orange does, you know, it doesn't matter. It's all just to help evoke certain feelings in yourself and make the spell easier, because the tools that you're using for the spell don't have any magic. I mean, they have some magic, but that's not where the magic is coming from for the actual spell. You're just using their energy and the energy of the tools that you pick up and all of the things to evoke a certain, you know, amount of feelings and intent from yourself. So the magic is in you, not the tools. So some people will use like leaves or bits of paper of some kind that they strew about the space to provide energy during the working. You can use petals from flowers as well, or glitter or sand. Glitter is terrible for the environment. Don't use glitter, but sand and other things. Crystals, which resonate with a power. They have a will all their own in a way, and they can amplify the power of the spell, and different crystals are better for different things, and the power comes from the different crystalline structure. So each one puts out a slightly different kind of energy, and you can pick up on that, and it helps you change your own state of mind. Invocations to deity for the more religious amongst us, that can be done in spell work as well, like I said above. And very commonly incenses, which are used to evoke certain feelings and sensations, get the practitioner into the right altered state of mind. Same type of idea as the rest. So the altered state of mind that I keep mentioning is really the important part of the spell. There are many that say that a spell works best when you completely forget about it. So the moment you stop searching, then you find your keys, that ideology. So for most, an altered state of mind means a state of non-thinking. This is also called a Gnostic, Gnostic state. So those who use this in magic or during meditation are called Gnostics. It's especially common in chaos magic, Gnosticism, but because chaos requires non-thinking to do magic. But life energy doesn't require non-thinking. It just requires you to only be thinking about your intent and your desire, right? So with life magic, that which utilizes the energy that you've raised yourself or borrowed from another living being, not a dead person, that'd be death magic. I mean, a state of gnosis is not required. An altered state of mind is still very useful, as you have to be visualizing and feeling and experiencing the outcome of the spell in order for it to work. And an altered state of mind is what allows you to get rid of the mundanities and just experience that vision. It's like forcing yourself to have a dream. And it requires all your concentration and focus be put on the task at hand. So likewise, generating life energy often becomes trance-like. And when you are in a trance, you can be sure your subconscious and conscious minds are aligned on your objectives. So the altered state of mind, or this trance-like state, comes about as a result of meditation, chanting, movement of some kind, like rocking back and forth, or yoga, or dance. Dancing is very common. Also singing, humming, listening to drumming or other instruments, actually drumming yourself, like having a drum circle. These are all ways to put the consciousness, the consciousness of your, to put your mind to bed, basically. Bring forward the intent and desire only, and generate energy for the spell. Dancing and movement of any kind does generate energy, and that's the purpose of life magic, to generate that energy and then send it out into the universe. So folks use different candles. I mentioned this. I do have a full list here. I'll just go ahead and read it. If you want to download PowerPoint slides because you're a visual learner, there are some from the Wicca and Witchcraft 101 series up on the website. So look under courses, under the resources tab for those PowerPoints. But I'll just go ahead and read it for anyone who is a listening type learner. So white is for purification, orange for creativity, reproduction, or fertility, red for passion, yellow for will or motivation and often self-love, blue for healing, black for banishing, binding, and cursing, purple for leadership, pink for love or friendship or relationships of any kind, and green for money or wealth of some form. So those are the classic associations of the candles, colors, and the spell that you're doing. But like I said above, whatever makes the most sense to you is what you should use. Oh, and I should have said this, completely random, not even in my little list of notes here, but you should write the spell in whatever your native language is, or whatever language you're more comfortable speaking. You should write your spell, dedication statements. You should use whatever language you're more comfortable with. Even if the people in the room with you don't understand, it doesn't matter if they understand what the words actually mean. As long as they understand what the intent and desire of the spell is, and they can chant with you or drum with you, that's all that matters. Okay, so likewise, there are associations for herbs, crystals, deities, you name it. So associations are what we call things that that help you do certain types of magical workings. When the associations are unknown and you are in a pinch and you can't look them up, you can usually determine what use something has by considering its associated chakra and element. So for instance, say you have a citrine candle, or crystal, sorry, citrine crystal, and you're not sure what it can be used for. So, you might think about the nature of the crystal. It's yellow, so that aligns with the tummy chakra, and it is of the element air. This means that it can be used as a source of energy or motivation, or as a means to tap into one's inner consciousness for healing and bettering of self. And if you look up what it means, most sites will have some variation of these qualities. So there are times when the associations are unexpected, but that's when you write it down in your Book of Shadows. Most of the time, it's common sense. You can figure it out for yourself, and there are people who would burn me at the stake for saying that. But anyway. Crystals can be held or placed on the altar during the working. I've even balanced some on my head as a part of the spell, or used some to represent deity or an offering or the element earth, etc. Herbs can be strewn about, say rose petals, as I mentioned earlier. They can be strewn about for like a love spell, or lavender for a peace spell, etc. Herbs and powdered spices can also be made into what's called a witch powder, which is used to sprinkle in a space. It has a wide variety of applications, from house cleansings to curses and banishments. If you sprinkle like hot pepper, my friend told me this, on the floor at someone's front porch, then they'll not want to come to your house. They'll walk outside with the intent to go see you, and then they'll just turn around and go back in. That's what she said. So there, you could sprinkle at your feet, at your own feet, if you want it to be a part of this spell, or to affect the root chakra, or affect everyone that comes in contact with it, etc. So that kind of thing. I say etc. a lot. Herbs and resins like myrrh, frankincense, those incenses which have tarry qualities to them can be combined to form incenses. So an incense is always made up of some parts plant, some parts resin. Incense can be used in the ritual if the purpose is purification or consecration or banishment or anything like that. Incense is used. An obvious example is sage for banishing and cleansing. Two halves of one process, right? Because if you are cleansing, you are getting rid of bad energy by bringing in good energy. And if you are banishing, you are bringing in good energy by getting rid of bad energy, right? So same concept, different perspective. If you mix flowers and scented things, pine needles, spices, with the resins and then burn them over a coal, then it can't, if it can't be used for the working itself, then it still helps to bring about an altered state of mind and set the mood for the spell. People will often hold an athame. Some will hold a wand while doing spell work. Most Wiccan authors consider the athame to be the tool of evocation or sending energy out. That is because a dagger is an active tool, something that can be used as a weapon or a literal tool, etc. Most people align the dagger with fire for this reason also, since our inner flame is where magic originates. There are many authors who align the athame with air, since air is the universal element of magic and divination, so there's no one right way to look at it. As long as your perspective is well thought out and works for you, that's all that matters. But the wand is usually used for invocation or bringing energy in, which is the opposite of spell work, because wood, trees, what they do is convert carbon dioxide into oxygen, transforming a chemical from one state to another, more beneficial state, which is a direct analog to the purpose of ritual, transformation. So the function of the tree in life is identical to the function of the wand in circle. For this reason, most use the wand for invocation and the athame for evocation. So holding an athame is quite common, and the wand is less common but not unheard of for spell work. Holding the wand is much more common for invoking deity or anything. So once the spell is done, you want to record it in your Book of Shadows. You want to record the date and moon phase, as well as the outcome of the spell, like whenever it finally comes to fruition. And the reason you record the outcome is so that you can tweak the spell if you want to do it again to possibly try and get better results. And you can kind of run experiments about the best way to see something done. It's different than a scientific experiment, right? Because if you don't believe that the magic will work, it won't. So it's not scientific at all. But it is a little scientific in the sense that if you keep track of the results, then you could potentially craft a better spell in the long run. Once a candle is snuffed out, and it's always more polite to snuff out a candle than to blow it out, though again, some people say the opposite. So most people say it's polite to snuff it out, like not, because blowing it out proves that your spirit is more powerful than the flame spirit or something like that. I don't know. I snuff them out. It's a superstitious thing. But once you do finally put the candle out, you should only ever use that same candle for a similar spell in the future, something with the exact same intent, pretty much. Many will leave their candles burning until the candle's all used up. For witches' bottles and poppets, they'll actually sometimes bury those outside, or for the poppets, think you might burn it or something. Many people say that if you bury a witch's bottle, then it either stays in effect until it breaks, or it doesn't come into effect until it breaks, depending on your intent. And that's it. So you create spells as needed. They can be simple, they can be complex, however you like. The more time you spend preparing and the more work you put in general, the more likely the results are positive. Spells are like baking loaves of bread. They take love to prepare, time to grow and blossom and rise, a lot of effort to knead and shape, and the perfect catalyst, heat in this case, to become bread. But in the case of spells, it's commitment. When the right balance is struck, magic is an incredibly powerful tool for bettering yourself and your situation. We hope this video helped you learn how to create your own spells. For any questions, don't hesitate to drop us a comment, shoot us an email, or join our online crossroads. Thanks for watching Wicca 101 Abridged, and from all of us here at the Coven of the Open Mind, blessed be.